All right. Hello, students. So right now we are reviewing how to subtract rational numbers. So before you watch this video, I really need you to watch the rules for subtracting integers. It's a review because it says here to subtract rational numbers, we use the same rules for subtracting integers. So to subtract, you need to add its opposite. Okay. Again, adding its opposite. Now, in class, we say that we have a shortcut for this, which we say keep, change, which is the adding part, and the opposite. Okay, so keep, change, opposite, or KCO. So don't forget that. Now, but of course, when you answer the problem, make sure you don't use the words keep, change, opposite. You make sure you use that to subtract, we add its opposite. Now, this is just to make things easier for us to remember the steps. Let's try this out. So find the difference and write the fractions in simplest form. So let me zoom in. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that stops moving. Now let's change the first thing we do is change the mixed number into an improper fraction, which is helpful. So 3 1/2 minus 5 1/4. So this is what we do. So we do times and we add, change this into an improper fraction. So you get 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So you got 7/2 minus, so 5 times 4 is 20 plus 1. That gives us 21/4. All right. Now let's apply what we know. Subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. So subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. So we keep the first term. We change this into an addition problem. We keep the first term. We change it into an addition problem. And then we get its opposite. What is the opposite of 21/4? Now remember, it's not negative 21/4 because the subtraction symbol becomes a positive. Now we do, what's the opposite of 21/4? And it is negative 21/4. Okay, so keep, change, and it's opposite, the opposite of 21/4. Now from here, we can apply the rules when we add integers. Are the signs the same or no? They're not. If they're not the same, what do we do? You're right. If they're not the same, we will be doing subtracting. But before we do anything, can we subtract right away? Because the denominator for the first term is 2 and the second one is 4. So we cannot. We need to find the common denominator. And we all know the common denominator is 4. So what did you multiply to 2 to get 4? So we multiply by 2. Whatever you do in your denominator, you do in your numerator. The bottom and the top. So 7 times 2 is 14. 2 times 2 is 4. Now this stays the same because 4 times 1 gives you 4. So you got the plus sign, don't forget, because we changed this to an addition problem already. Then we got negative 21 times 1 gives you negative 21. Okay, let's apply what we know. We have the same denominator now. Now the signs are different, so we said we subtract. So subtract the bigger magnitude minus the smaller magnitude. So 21 minus 14, and that gives us 7. Now, next is the sign. Which one has the bigger magnitude? 21. And what's the symbol for 21? A negative, so it's a negative. Then copy the denominator. Now, it says simplest form. This is the simplest form. Now, sometimes it might ask you to change to a mixed number. So let's change this to a mixed number. So we got a negative answer. That's a negative 7/4. So so the fourths can go, 4 can go into 7 how many times? 1 time. So 4 times 1 is 4. To get to 7, we need 3 more. Make it easier. So these two are your answers. Okay? Now, let's try decimal. So we have negative 2.3 minus negative 7.1. Again, subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. So adding its opposite. So we keep, we change this to its opposite. So keep 2.3, change this to a positive, and what's the opposite of negative 7.1? Positive 7.1. Now, look at these two terms. We're adding signs that are different. One is a negative, one's a positive. And you're right, we're gonna subtract because the signs are different. Now, before we subtract, do you know if your answer is a positive or a negative? Yes, it is positive because 7.1 has a bigger magnitude than the other term. Now let's subtract. So we subtract the bigger magnitude minus the smaller magnitude. Okay, don't forget that. Oops. So can we take away 3 from 1? No, we cannot. So we borrow from 7. 7 becomes a 6. 1 becomes an 11. 11 minus 3, and that should give us 8. The decimal point, make sure you line them up. 6 minus 2 is 4, so the answer is a positive 4.8. Now, do you need to put a positive there? You don't have to. It's understandable that if it's just 4.8, it's a positive. Let's do number 3. Now, number 3 is negative 1/2 minus 5/8. So if you had negative 1/2 minus 5/8, we keep change in its opposite, KCO. Now, why do we do this again? Yes, you're right, because subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. So we got negative, let me change the pen. We got negative 1/2 plus, what's the opposite of 5/8? That's going to be a negative 5/8. And we need to find the common denominator. And the common denominator is 8. Now, how do we get 8? If you skip count 2 and 8, the common multiple would be the least common multiple is 8. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 8, 16. So 8 is the least common multiple. So 2 times something gets you 8. That's going to be 2 times 4. That means whatever you do at the denominator, you do in your numerator. So negative 1 times 4 is a negative 4. The addition problem. Now, this stays the same because 8 times 1 is 8. So 5 times 1 is still a negative 5. The signs are the same. What do? We add the magnitude, that's going to be a 9, and the sign stays the same, negative 9/8. Now, or how many 8s can go into 9 when it's a negative? 1 time. So 1 more to make it into a negative 9/8. Now, if you ask me, do I really need to change it into a positive, into an addition problem? You don't have to. We only changed it into addition problem because usually it's easier to do addition problems versus problems with subtraction symbols, like multiple negatives. Now, if you already know that these two have the same symbol and you add them up, it's fine. But if you are still a beginner, then it's easier if you change the subtracting symbol into the subtraction problem into an addition problem. There you go. Number 4. Let's try this out. So 3 1/10 minus negative 1 1/5. Now we know if it's a double negative is equals positive. Okay, so keep change opposite. So keep change opposite because subtracting is the same thing as adding its opposite. So we change it into a mixed improper fraction first. Times a plus, times a plus. There you go. 10 times 3 is 30, plus 1 is 31/10. The subtraction symbol becomes a addition symbol. What's the opposite of negative 1/5? It's a positive 1 1/5. No. So that's going to be 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6/5, so 6/5. Again, the opposite of negative 1 1/5 is positive 1 1/5, or 6/5. We don't change the first term. We only get the opposite of the second term. Now, the signs are the same, so we just add. What's the common denominator? It's 10. So 10 times something gets you 10. It's positive 1, so that stays the same. Now, 5 times something gets you 10. That's 2. So 6 times 2 is 12. The addition sign, 12. 31 plus 12, that gives you 43/10. Or how many 10s are there in 43? And that's going to be 4 tenths. And then 3 more to make it 43. Okay. And that would be number 4. Now let's try to do this 2 right here. If you have multiple terms for like this number 5, what you need to do is apply a strategy using the properties of operation. I mean, rearrange the numbers, the commutative property. So as you can see, you have 1/3 minus 4/5 minus 1/3 plus 2 1/10. What do you know? You know that opposites equal 0. So opposite numbers equal 0. So are there any numbers here that are opposites? And you're right, it's 1/3 and minus 1/3. So you can rearrange the terms, but make sure that you keep the proper sign. So 1/3, so I'm going to put minus 1/3, and you got minus 4/5, and you have plus 2 1/10. So I just rearranged the terms, and I made sure that the whatever is the symbol, I brought it with the term. Now this 2, 1/3 take away 1/3 is 0, so you don't even need to add anything or to do anything. We know right away, mental math, that's 0. So what we need to do is just do these two things. So negative 4/5 plus 2 1/10. We know these two are have different signs, so we subtract. So change this into a mixed number. So negative 4/5, the addition symbol, that's 21/10. Because 10 times 2 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Now question, why didn't we change this into an addition problem? Well, the answer is because it's already an addition problem. So you don't apply the keep change opposite, okay? So now let's find the common denominator, which is 10. So 21 stays the same, the plus symbol. This is 5 times 2 times 2, that's a negative 8. Why? 5 times 2 gives you 10. Whatever you do at the bottom, or your denominator, you do at the top. Now the signs are different. So if the signs are different, what do we do again? We subtract the magnitude and copy the sign of the bigger magnitude. So that becomes what's 21 minus 8? That's a 13. The answer is a positive 13 over 10, or 1 3/10. So either of these two would be your correct answer. Okay? Now, let's try number 6. It says 8.3 minus 10.1 minus 8.3 plus 12.2. Right away, you already know. These two are opposites. You can just cross that out. It means that's a 0. But for the sake of being more organized, let's rewrite this using the commutative property of addition. So 8.3 minus 8.3 minus 10.1 plus 12.2. Right off the bat, we know they're opposites, so that's equal to 0, because that's a positive 8.3 minus 8.3, 0. What's left would be this 2. Now we know this is an addition problem, so what we do is subtract. Subtract the bigger magnitude minus the smaller magnitude. Make sure you line up the place value. 2 minus 1 is 1 decimal. 2 minus 0 is 2. 1 minus 1 is 0. So the answer is 2.1. Is it positive or negative? Yes, it's a positive because this has a bigger magnitude. The answer is 2.1. All right. Word problem, last one. Number 7. So your dog's water bowl is 3/4 full. After taking a drink, the water bowl is 1/2 full. What fraction of the bowl did your dog drink? So simple subtraction problem. 3/4 was the beginning value. We take away, and then what's left is 1/3. So how much water did your dog drink from the bowl? So right now we got 3/4 minus 1/3. We need to find the common denominator, and that is 12. So we multiply this by 3 to get 12. We multiply the 3 by 4 to get 12. So whatever you do on your denominator, do in your numerator. So 3 times 3 is a 9. Ooh. This becomes minus, and that becomes a 4. Now, you said we're going to do keep change opposite. Absolutely. So let's change this into a keep change opposite. 9 plus a negative 4 over 12. And that should give us, what? 5 over 12 of the bowl. Okay? Hopefully that helps.